And Sana, thank you for the introduction. Just before I see my screen so that everyone can see my face, my name is Gerhard Fourie. I've been in the field of air quality for the last 28 years. In that 28 years, I've dealt with all facets of air quality, from starting from the emission inventory side, quantification of emissions, modeling of the emissions, quantifying impacts of that emissions on the receiving environment, monitoring of ambient air quality, baseline air quality assessments, human risk assessments. I've been involved with conceptual design of air pollution control technology and abatement technology, so where we reduce the emissions from the source, etc. So all aspects pertaining to air quality. So let me just quickly share my screen. So this presentation, this presentation, or the title, is Air Quality Intelligence for Modern Professionals. And just briefly, as mentioned, that's my name, and I work for a company called Ricardo. Ricardo has subsequently been acquired by WSP International, and from the 1st of July, the Ricardo name will actually fall away, and we will be fully integrated into the WSP environment. My office is in Abu Dhabi, so I'm working on a lot of the Middle East projects for Ricardo, or now for WSP. So before we start with air quality and air pollution, just a few definitions before we start. So what do we understand by the term air quality as well as air pollution? So per definition and from literature, air quality is how pollutant the air is that we actually breathe. Okay, so it's a definition for the quantity of pollutants in the air. And where air pollution is being defined as just the mixture of gaseous and particulates, both from natural as well as industrial or human origin into the atmosphere. So just the difference. So why do industry, and this is specifically pertaining now to industry, why do industry need to study or quantify air quality in a region? So I'm going to deal with about 9 points that I've presented or want to share with you on why it's actually essential for industry to deal with this. So number one, obviously, is regulatory compliance and legal protection. So each and every country has got specific air quality regulations. And normally the air quality relations is divided into two areas. There is normally an ambient air quality standard that is being specified in the legislation. And the other one is there's an emission standard. And people need to understand the difference between the two, because there's a lot of confusion. Because an industry or a specific business needs to comply to a specific emission standard, whereas the ambient environment needs to comply to an ambient air quality standard. And that is also very different between occupational hygiene standards. So there's actually three ideas that I want to bring forward here. Okay. And what is the consequence of not complying to these environmental laws in terms of industry? First of all, there's fines and penalties, and that is country specific. Depending on the country, they will have specific fines and penalties associated with their environmental legislation. And that could be a monetary penalty in terms of money that you need to pay, but also even penalties that's imprisonment for specific persons. The other thing that's normally associated to non-compliance could be production shutdowns. So a country can tell you, or the government can tell you to actually shut down production for the facility, and then obviously legal actions or lawsuits. Then moving over to emission standards. And this is also, like I said, very specific per country. So this is now an example that I want to show you for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia from the Executive Regulations of Air Quality, Article 5. And this is pertaining to emissions of point sources. So you can clearly see in the table, this is for a combustion facility that's been constructed or modified after September the 1st. And this is for fossil fuel-fired steam generation units with furnaces with a heat input capacity of more than 250 million British thermal units per hour, or let's say 73 megawatts. So there's specific standards for the gaseous as well as particle emissions for that specific unit. And that is, like I said, specific. So for SO2, for instance, is 350 nanograms per joule. Okay, and like I said, this is very specific for each country. So every country will have specific standards pertaining to emissions, like I mentioned before, and moving on to ambient air quality standards as well. So ambient air quality standards and ambient air we actually define as air that normal persons or people are exposed to on a 24-hour, 7 days a week period. And that is the air that they breathe. Okay, so it's not an emission standard, like I said previously, that's at the source of the pollutant. It's actually more what the people breathe, the ambient air. And there's also specific standards for the specific pollutants. And normally, for an ambient air quality standard, there's two components. It's the concentration, or actually three components. There's the concentration, there's the averaging period, and there's allowable exceedance. So let's, for instance, take particulate matter, the bottom one. So for a 24-hour period, so if we normally, and where the 24 hours come in is, let's say we've got an instrument that actually measures every 10 minutes the concentration of the PM10. So 6 of those PM10 values that the instrument measure will actually calculate a 1 hour standard, and then 24 of those 1 hour standards is used to actually calculate a 24-hour standard or average. And that 24-hour average, that calculation can be compared then to this ambient air quality standard. So for a 24-hour period, the standard for ambient air quality in Saudi Arabia is 340 micrograms per cubic meters. And in an annual period of 365 days, that specific standard, that daily or 24-hour standard, can be exceeded 12 times in a year. Okay, so if we exceeded it 12 times in a year, then we are still in compliance. But if we exceed it 13 times in a year, that area is being defined as non-compliance or non-compliant to the ambient air quality standard. Okay. Things to note that is important. A company can actually not exceed an ambient air quality standard. They can only exceed an emission standard, but because the outside environment can actually then only exceed an ambient air quality standard, because there's a lot of sources that actually contributes to an ambient air quality, the concentrations. Next slide is just a comparison of, for interest sake, for the GCC countries for, let's say, PM10. So for a 24-hour period or averaging period, in Bahrain, the concentration is 340. In Kuwait, it's 350. In Oman, it's 150. Qatar, also 150. Saudi Arabia, like I mentioned, 340. UAE, 150. And if you compare that to the European standards, it's actually 50. The US EPA standard is 150. And the World Health Organization has got a guideline. They don't have a standard, but they've got a guideline of 50 micrograms per cubic meters. Like I mentioned previously, it's country specific, normally the standards in the legislation, and then obviously there's standards for PM 2.5 as well. Okay, moving on to the next part. So we've got the first one was the legislation in terms of compliance to legislation that actually drives or necessitate industry to do air quality studies. The next one is worker health and safety, and this has got to do more with occupational hygiene. So poor indoor air quality can expose workers to a lot of the gases and particulates, and monitoring helps to reduce and prevent respiratory illnesses and long-term health conditions, and obviously improve employee well-being and productivity. So just on the right-hand side, or actually the picture on top, I just want to illustrate what, when we talk about dust and specifically particulates, when we talk about particulates PM10, so that is particulates with an aerodynamic diameter of less than 10 micrometers. So in this case, just for illustration, there is a human hair. So, sorry, let me just go back. So actually the blue dots on there is the size of PM10. Okay. And the purple little dots on the PM10 is actually particulate matter PM 2.5, as we refer it to. Just to give you an idea of what is the size fractions that we are talking about. Okay, so the second one is worker health and safety. The third one is more environmental ESG part, ES and G, environmental, social, and governance performance. So, I mean, quantifying emissions will help industry to track and quantify environmental footprints or impacts, meet sustainability targets, and also support carbon neutrality and net zero goals. Moving on to the fourth point, why is it needed for to look at air quality, is community and public health protection. So normally the industry and emissions emanating from the industries impacts on the surrounding communities. Monitoring of this or the ambient environment will help reduce pollution or exposure, can help to reduce the pollution exposure from the nearby populations, as well as better community relations, and also reduce the risk of public complaints and protests. If we look at the fifth one, is actually process optimization, efficiency, and cost reduction. So how would that, why should industry look at air quality pertaining to process optimization? So air pollutants often indicate inefficiencies in industrial processes. So let's say we've got high particulate levels in the ambient environment emanating from a specific source. That could be because of poor combustion efficiencies. Or let's say we measure the ambient air quality and we see high VOC concentrations pertaining to a specific emission source. Okay, so that could be because of material losses or leaks from the facility. So monitoring can help to identify inefficiencies, reduce waste, improve process control. Inefficient processes is equal to material and energy losses. So air quality data will actually help to detect leaks, to identify maybe incomplete combustion, reduce energy consumption, and thus lower maintenance cost through fault detection. Moving on to the sixth point, risk management and incident prevention. So a lot of these emissions actually has got some real risk associated to them. I mean, pollutants like methane, VOCs are flammable, are explosive, toxic. So real-time monitoring can actually enable real early detection of leaks from the process, prevention of fires and explosions, as well as emergency response readiness. And then moving on to a little bit on the softer issues, the reputation and brand value. So Environmental performance is highly visible today. So strong air quality management build actually trust with stakeholders, attract investors and customers, and enhance corporate images. And then data-driven decision making, quantified air quality, the data that actually enables to do trend analysis and predictive maintenance, better operational planning, and it can also support digitization and smart industry initiatives. Air pollutants sometimes overlap with greenhouse gases, so the measurements of the emissions helps with to quantify the carbon footprints and the reporting thereof. So it's also very important to note there's a difference between greenhouse gas inventories and what is needed to supply that or compliance to submit that to local governments versus the normal emission inventories. And then also participation in carbon markets. So in summary, like I said, why does industry need to look at air quality? First of all, it's more to do with the legal compliance. Secondly, it's about protecting the people as well as the employees to improve operations, reduce costs for the industry, and that will help the industry to stay competitive and also to meet sustainability goals. Okay, so just there on that slide, this is typically the air quality or what we call the atmospheric pathway. So you get your emissions that's either natural emissions or anthropogenic or man-made. So you get your emissions into the atmosphere, your gases and particulates actually dilutes and gets transported in the atmosphere. You get actually chemistry taking place in the atmosphere as well, and that will give you your ambient concentrations, and the removal of these pollutants are either by dry deposition or wet deposition. So understanding the flux around this pathway is essential to develop air quality management programs. But like Sana said, this is just a brief overview. I'm going to go into a lot of detail with this in the training course that we present actually later this year. So any questions from anyone, please put it in the Q&A box, and we'll able to address that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerhard. Okay, so if anyone has any questions, they can write it in the Q&A box, and then Gerhard will answer. Gerhard, we will wait for 2 to 3 minutes, okay?
No questions. I know it was very brief, but I hope I've get at least one question.
Okay, Gerhard, before you take the questions, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I would like to tell everyone about our training program that is coming in August. It's basically an in-person public program on emission air quality. And yeah, that's the basic information about the program. And if anyone is interested, they can just write us an email. And this is a CPD certified program. So environmental and sustainability professionals, compliance professionals, everyone can attend this program to enhance their knowledge regarding air quality. So that's it. If anyone wants to note the email address, they can, and they can write to us, and we will share the details about this program. Okay, Gerhard, I think we have a question.
Let me just see.
Can you access it?
Yes, I can. So the first question is from Taha Abidi. For professionals who are new to this field, what skills or professional areas should they focus on developing? I'm not going to type it. Can I just answer it like this?
Yes, you have to answer it verbally. Yeah.
Okay, verbally. So Taha, like I said, knowledge area is to get a good overview of a basic overview of all the components, and then obviously to focus then on more detail on the specific components. Like I said, like Sobia said, when Sana said, the course that we present is actually a 3-day course giving an overview. But I mean, I can give you a three-day course just on emission inventories per se, or on atmospheric modeling, or how do we measure air pollution from the source, or atmospheric chemistry, etc. So like I said, it's first get a broad overview of all the different components. I would suggest that, and then focus on specific of the components of interest. And then the next question is from Shahzad Salim. What is the single most important action organizations should prioritize to improve air quality effectively? Shahzad, I would say focus on compliance to the emission standards of your local government or country. I think that is the specific area that if there's a specific standard, make sure that first of all the monitoring of that emission source is done correctly, and then make sure that the physical quantity or the emissions are in compliance with the standards. That is actually the only thing that a company can do effectively to start. And then obviously to determine then after that, what is the impact of that emissions on the receiving environment. And after we've identified normally what is the footprint or the environmental footprint of that associated with the emissions, and that we normally do with atmospheric modeling, we can actually go back and try and reduce our emissions. And then obviously some ambient air quality monitoring as well will also come into play. But like I said, that is actually the feedback loop. So we first need to see what is the amount of emissions that we actually emit into the atmosphere, quantify the risk associated with that emissions, and then try and reduce the emissions so that we can actually minimize that risk. So yeah, that is in a nutshell what is the most important thing.
Any other question, participants? Gerhard, I think we don't have more questions. So thank you very much for such a wonderful webinar, and hopefully we'll meet in our training program. And yeah, okay, in last we have a feedback form. So I'll just quickly add that so you can give your feedback. Okay, let me see. Everyone, please give your feedback for this webinar. And if you have any questions or if you're interested in our training, you can directly reach out to us over the number or email address I shared with you, or maybe you can directly email us or visit our website. Okay, Gerhard. Okay, Sana, thank you very much. Thank you, participants, for attending this webinar. See you soon.